Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Universus Academy podcast. I am your host, John Jennings. With me, as always, behind the scenes, we have Ryan Kraft producing. On screen, we have my co-host, Mr. Matt Childress, and we also have a very special guest host with us, Mr. Tim Friedlieb. Hi, Tim.
What's up, Tim?
How's it going, man?
It's going good. It's been always busy around here, but it's going pretty well.
Nice. We appreciate it. Guys, if you don't know, Tim works for Jasco. And Tim, tell the viewers, what is your job? What do you do?
Well, these days I lead the design and development team. So what that means is, based off of what we want to do for a set, we'll concept out the story, the parts of the story that we want to do. Then we'll kind of like choose the moments or whatnot, and then we turn those awesome moments into the cards that you guys get to play.
Nice.
Oh, that's really cool. So you guys actually intentionally, because we've talked on the show before about how it feels really thematically accurate or represents this character's quirk or other things like that. And like, especially with set one, like how it felt like you were playing the game. So you guys actually intentionally are choosing, like you're saying, like key story moments. You're like, this moment really needs to resonate. Like this card needs to capture this excitement or whatever it may be.
We're definitely trying to do that as much as possible.
It's really cool.
We love mechanics, but I try to do a good mix of top down versus bottom up design. So for me, the one thing we know is that fans of big properties like My Hero Academia are, they're very passionate and they really, really like things to be accurate. And so capturing that feel of each character, how they should play, what that moment really kind of means is very important to me and the rest of the team when it comes to designing the cards.
Nice. That's glad to hear that you guys have that like intentional design and that thoughtfulness behind it.
Right.
And also, guys, if you're listening and you're wondering why your favorite character sucks, Tim told me before we started it's because he hates you specifically and he doesn't want you to have fun in life. That's what he said. He was saying beforehand.
Yep. Specifically you.
Yes.
No one but you. Yeah.
No one but you. Yes. He wants you to have no fun ever.
That's really cool from a design standpoint, though, to try to capture those moments. Because you're right. Like, I'm a huge fan of the series, and there are moments that I'm like, oh man, that was really hype. And I would say mission accomplished so far, man. Because as anyone who listens, I always geek out over the art. Like it's just a throwaway line that, oh yeah, the art's great on this one. And Matt always loves the art. But even further, a lot of the characters and how they feel and how they play does feel like you're actually they're distinctly different from one another, but also that they represent their character in the way that they are in the anime. So keep up the good work there, man. I'm enjoying it.
If I look closed off, sorry, I'm not, guys. I'm just gonna try to get a little comfortable since I know we're gonna be chatting for a little bit. So
no, you're good. You're good. On Matt's point, like to the themes and everything like that as well. I will say, props to it's one card in set 2 that I think captures this almost better than any other card release, and it's Back Alley Haymaker. Like the picture is amazing, the art's amazing, like the action is amazing. That card feels great to play. Like I never feel bad playing that card, right? And it's like it's so in tune with the episode, like that moment in the show when you're like, oh my god, they're about to kill Ida. They're just gonna kill him. And then out of nowhere, here comes Deku to save the day, right? Like it's so like it's
I love it. Your boy shows up and he's like, I got you, dog. I'm a hero too.
Yeah, like that was like that's I'm sure there's other stuff that I'm overlooking, but that one like really sticks out in my mind.
I can get on board with that. Yeah. I love all the things about that card as well.
Well, if you guys don't know, there was a little bit of news today. I waited to date the episode for a little bit, Matt, so you can't. I waited at least like 5 minutes.
We made it a solid like 3 to 5 minutes.
Yeah, we got through a few topics before I dated the episode. But there was a little bit of news. Asui has been on a little bit of a tear in these last few events. She just took down obviously the Gen Con RLE. And she won the online provisional this past weekend. And specifically, it's been the Life Master of Asia, basically the 50-50 Railgun deck. And today, 2 cards were announced they were going to be banned, and 3 cards were banned. But 2 specifically were related to Asui and that deck in Frog Lashing and Amphibious. And Tim's going to talk with us about that. I guess, Tim, first, do you just want to share like your general thoughts about like why those two cards? We'll talk about Unwavering Slash after these two.
Unwavering Slash got banned.
Which was the third card? Spoilers. Ooh,
God.
the third card was Unwavering Slash. But why those two cards specifically, and like why bans as opposed to trying errata or doing other things to them?
Sure. So, okay. So we kind of explained that some of the issues being the kind of cheating progressive.
Mhm.
It's an outlier, right? Amphibious could have been originally printed as a 2 difficulty, and it still would have seen 4x play. It could have probably even also have been a 4 check and seen 4x play, like a 2 diff 4 check. It's just what it does, especially when the gate to activating it is something that's a bonus payoff anyway. Now that said, there's still some times where we want to pay someone off for doing something they want to do. But because so much of the game is relied upon progressive difficulty, it's a core pillar of design and fundamental gameplay. Just something that over a round of turns could be 3 foundations. I mean, we have old cards from the previous design sets and whatnot where that was a big no-no too, right?
Mm.
So it's just about the amount of benefit that you get. And I think that really was a big part of what allowed, 7, 8, potentially even 9 attack strings um, uh, to occur so early in the game. And I think the most success that you saw with the deck was actually going off on turn 3. It could certainly steamroll, a rival on turn 2, but I believe you look at Travis, the most decorated player now with that deck, having gone, what was it, 12-0 or 13-0?
12-0, I believe, because he
Yeah,
went 8-0 through Swiss, and then the 4 rounds. Yeah.
This
Oh
past
yeah, come on from this weekend. Yeah. Sorry.
this past
Ryan
weekend,
won the RLE. What are you talking about? But I see what you're saying.
yeah, I think his game plan was traditionally go for turn 3,
Mhm.
build, and go. Maybe even poking a little bit on turn 2, but again, it's just what it's allowed to do with minimal resources. Um, and you look at Frog Lashing. Frog Lashing is even better than potentially a 3 difficulty attack. Like, a lot of people will say, they'll look at it and say, because I get to ready 2, it can be a 3 difficulty attack, right?
Mhm.
I check a 5, so I tap as if I'm a 5, and then I ready 2. But
Mhm.
if you really look at it, um, if you're playing it on, say, a 6 or something, and you have 2 committed already, uh, or even just 1 committed, you check a 5, tap 1, now I'm reading 2, so now I'm actually gaining. It's
Mhm.
not even, like, offsetting the costs that it has to, potentially have to commit some to play it, but it can also gain you back extra. So, it's not just a finisher or a dunk, as we like to call them too,
Mhm.
it's an extender, so it's a utility, it's an extender, it's a dunk. Uh, the card does it all. It's also great defense.
Yeah,
It's like a +1 mid
definitely.
with breaker. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so you mentioned a term, and I think I know what you mean, but I just want to clarify for the viewers. You said amphibious could be like 3 foundations over a round of turns. So what you're referring to is my turn, then your turn if we were playing. It could count basically because I could tap it potentially up to like 3 or 4 times, depending on how I attack. Clear 1, ready it on my turn, goes into your turn, commit it for block. Then I can pitch my block if I'm Asui or other characters potentially as well. Is that what you're referring to there?
Yeah, that was what I was talking about.
Mhm.
Okay, yeah. And that's what I figured. But yeah, like that logic makes perfect sense to me. Like, I mean, that card is value town the card, right?
Mhm.
Like,
Yeah.
it's the only time you're sad to see it is when you check it. Like
Yeah.
that's the only time it's not doing something for you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
then it was still a 5 to your point. Like, it could have been a 2/4, and I think you really would have seen it still showing up in as a 4x in a lot of decks
Oh,
because
yeah.
they just need that gas. Like, I mean, that's it. It really did. And to your point about progressive difficulty, like the math's kind of built around like having no more than 10 foundations, right? And even further, the character in the situation Asui or any character that can get it online is cheating progressive already, right? Like they're clearing a card, and now to your point about frog lashing, they're going positive off of it. Like, hey, I cleared a card that's -1, and then I ready all these foundations that I committed to play those cards. So now I'm going up positive. So it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at like another like string, like another ultra like strings attacks along like double jab pummel, it's kind of like it. You would think they like sort of work in a similar fashion at some point, because double jab pummel obviously lets you extend your turns by adding to your check, whereas frog lashing does that, but it's like 10 times better, and they're like both. I mean, it's yeah, I
Yeah,
get what you're saying.
frog lashing
yeah.
also buffs itself,
Yeah.
and
Oh yeah, a one-time bonus to a one-time bonus to playing your next card is
Mhm.
very different from gaining back
Yeah.
resources that are important for either my turn or your turn,
Mhm.
right.
and I can sit on those resources.
And there's also no prerequisite about whether or not they've already been readied.
Well,
Correct.
and that kind of leads me to what I was going to ask is, so clearly these cards are gone, they're banned. At any point in time, were erratas going to be considered as solutions? So, like, for example, maybe with Amphibious, changing it instead of it's just when a card leaves once per turn,
Or
or
make it
whatever it may,
unique.
or with adding the text, like John was pointing out, of if it hasn't been readied to lashing, like, were those things considered, or capping the damage on lashing if that was part of the problem? I'm not certain, but yeah.
I mean, we spent for clarity. I really want everyone to know we have been looking at these cards for a while. It's not just, hey, enough people were finally complaining,
Mhm.
and Travis went 12-0, so we gathered on Monday to talk about it for the first time. We've been discussing these cards, and we keep an eye on a number of cards, but we've been discussing these and potential action for quite some time. Um, I know for me, I'm personally not a big fan of power level errata.
Mhm.
We do it when we have to, especially if printing constraints are an issue. I also don't even necessarily personally uh, really love something like an MRP. We've done
Mhm.
that in the past as well. When it comes to errata, I'm not a huge fan of power level errata. I think clarifying errata where you don't actually have to have the text, but the like errata is telling you like, hey, this is what we intended with the text. It was a little ambiguous. You kind of didn't get it before. But with power level errata, you see a card, you might forget that it's been changed
Mhm.
or something. Maybe you're playing across the table from someone where they play a card that's been errated with a power level errata, and they forgot and you forgot, so you can't even catch them and say, "Hey, no, no, no," or maybe there's an added gate, and you don't think about it, and are like, "Oh, you shouldn't have been able to play this, but you did," or "You should have been able to do this because it's been errated to do an extra thing." But it's just, again, the onus to a degree is on a player to know what their cards do. But it's just, and then if you have multiple, like, if you like errata a card and then print a new version of it with the new text,
Mhm.
there's a dissonance. The cards aren't the same. So it's, hey, what if someone has one of each copy in their deck? And now, like, that's a mind game, and it's
Yeah.
just kind of
Which
a
one's the
big,
real one? Who knows?
yeah,
And
kind of a big mess. And
Yeah.
I think I'm a little bit more in favor of, if we're going, if we like a card, but it's just too much,
mhm.
um, maybe we can ban this one, do a spiritual successor to that card. Like, I don't know. I'm not saying this is going to happen, but
Mhm.
if in like high
Ooh.
end fantasy land, let's
Yeah,
say
yeah.
we really like the idea of a finishing type move instead of like frog lashing, maybe it'd be swimming frog.
Oh,
I
so
don't
it's
know.
not quite swimming bird, but it's not quite frog lashing either.
I
It's
don't,
somewhere in
yeah.
between.
So
Okay,
again,
okay.
this is totally. I'm speaking this
Hypothetically
in a
speaking.
Yeah, don't
total
read anything into this at
hypothetical.
all. Yeah, no.
I would just rather do a new card with similar abilities that's a spiritual successor,
Mhm.
um, rather than ban and MRP,
Mhm.
or most recent printing
Mhm.
Yeah.
a card, just because, again, you have that issue. It's the same reason why we don't ever errata stats on a card. because like
Okay.
Oh yeah. Oh
changing
my god.
changing the difficulty
Ugh.
or in numbers, that is like the instinctual thing. Like I have some cards. Like if
Mhm.
we took if we took like Draft Toss and said, hey, we errated this. This is now a 4 difficulty, but you have to play with it with the printed 5.
hmm
Good luck.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that sounds terrible. And
Yeah.
like I don't I would give most people the benefit of the doubt that they are not going to try to maybe put in different copies of it to try to
Mhm.
intentionally trip up people. But it definitely opens the door for that type of play for people who are we'll call them angle shooters, trying to get every possible advantage they can get, right? And it feels kind of icky.
And that's the other problem is like we don't assume everyone's going to want to
hmm
angle shoot,
Yeah.
but like
But people will. People are gonna.
Some
Someone's
people,
gonna.
how do you just wait until that one person who does? Like
right.
hmm
you want to set precautions so that nobody even has that chance.
Well, it's
Yeah.
always better to be proactive than reactive, right? Because
hmm
proactive has intent as
Uh,
opposed to reactive, where it's just
Despite I know that there's some people that don't like the idea of setting a standard so that everyone has to follow it,
Mhm.
even though like we don't expect most people to.
hmm
But that's not what you guys asked me to talk about
Oh yeah,
today.
no, that's a whole
Yeah,
different
right,
thing.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I totally agree with your points. I think those are really valid points about the differences between banning and errata-ing cards, right?
Mhm,
Like, I've played card games before where there were erratas, and it did get very confusing, especially the longer you play the game, because then you get further
mhm,
removed from it. Like, if you guys had just say errata, frog lashing right now, then we can probably remember it because there's only 2 sets, right? Set 3 is coming out sometime in the future, not too long, hopefully. But that being said, we can still probably remember that because the card pool is small enough. But a year
Well,
from now, who knows how many more sets we're going to have? And at that point, who knows if you're just getting into the game and you track this card down, you see it online, you're like, oh man, I want that card. Oh, I buy it, and then I realize it doesn't do what I thought it did because I didn't know that because I'm new to the game and I just love Asui and I just want to play her cards with her face on it.
mhm. Yep.
right.
Like,
I mean,
yeah.
and there were talks. We talked about a lot of different options. We talked about, just getting rid of the ready to, adding in the text of that haven't been readied. And
Mhm,
when we dissected it realistically, um, it was we took the route that we thought was just the best for the game.
mhm.
Um, and there might still be more work to do in the future, but this right now, we're hoping that this will lead to better gameplay. Um, Especially because when we take action, the intent is not to say this character should never ever be good ever.
Mhm.
It's there's a significant disparity in the power level, and it's creating a bad experience. And we want to even that out.
Yeah.
So, and John, I don't know if you had a question. I didn't want to cut you
Mm,
off, but like I did have a question. You were talking about characters in particular. We don't want this character to be bad. So now we've had a couple rounds of bannings since the game came out. Kirishima one got banned initially in the first set. Coordinated effort. Some of him and his
well, he got
tools.
eroded.
Yeah,
Yeah, he did get it
errata.
right. I'm sorry. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. He did not get banned. So you just haven't seen him since then. So but outside of that,
There's a couple people playing decks
I
with
was
him,
gonna say,
but
I mean,
yeah,
Church had some strong words about Kirishima 1.
he's not very popular, but
yeah.
there's some people out there playing him.
But then you have in this situation, it was just the support cards and not the character that people would point to, right? Most people would point to Oswey once just snapped. Why isn't she getting touched? Why they only touch these cards and not her? So can you speak to that kind of process? Because before it was the character and some support, versus this time it's just the support, not the character.
Sure. So I can tell you that I'm trying to think of where to start. So let's start on
Back.
kind of the previous. Let's talk real quick then about Kirishima
Mhm.
and coordinated effort. Um, there were a lot again. Everyone knew that it was a creeping problem
Mhm,
with coordinated effort, and we were talking about that for a bit, and we tossed around some ideas, and we ended up where we did, right, with Kirishima Arata and the coordinated effort ban. A few of us had also talked. Maybe we just touch coordinated effort two, where it goes overall the entire team working on organized play and design. We came to the conclusion that we did. However, I think we could all agree that maybe that was a bit heavy-handed.
mhm.
Let's see. The thing that we know 100% for sure is an issue let's touch. Coordinated for absolutely that card. Again, we provided the data back then. It was in that percentage of decks that were on symbol. It was majority of every deck running it was running it at 4x, despite the fact that it being a 3 difficulty unique foundation.
Yeah, right? A 3 diff unique that people are 4xing is insane.
We looked at it. That card 100% needed to be banned. Then came the question of, do we also touch Kirishima and or not? We took one route. I think that looking back, even if it ended up like, we're kind of willing to eat our own words and see, but I think that to a degree, especially because Kirishima 2 was not out at the time, like banning or even effectively banning a character really hurts. Let me go back and say, anytime we ban a card, unfortunately, that's a failure on our part, and we'll state that over and over again. That is never our intention. We don't ever want to have to touch a card. We want to get things right the first time. We're all human. That mistakes happen.
Well, it's even if it's not a mistake, it's just you don't know. Like, there's no way you can simulate the meta to that degree, right? Like, you can theorize, you can craft, and you can look at and have whatever design elements you guys have. But like, I would argue, I don't think I've ever played a card game that doesn't have bans or radas or something at
It
some
happens.
point.
I would say even Magic, just as long as you're not hitting like Yu-Gi-Oh territory, like I think we're good, right? Like that's the gold standard. Just don't be Yu-Gi-Oh with banning cards.
So, well, thanks. So I think and every card, especially characters, every card or even every character, is somebody's favorite, right?
Yeah,
For
and
sure.
that's what I was gonna say, right? Like, because I see a lot of people saying like, "Oh, you should have just banned her. You should have just banned her." And it's like, well, I get that that's like your gut emotional response, but like you got to think about it from the majority of people playing the game. It's gonna be someone who's cracking open a pack, looking for the first time, like, "Oh my god, Asui's my favorite character. I got her." And then you're like, "Oh, I want to go build a deck," and the first thing you look up is, "Oh, I can't play her. This character's banned." That feels really really bad.
Now, the counter that I've heard a bit today is that Asui 2 still exists.
Yeah, okay.
The problem with that is you go to play and then someone tells you, "Oh, you're playing the bad character."
Yeah,
Well, that also feels bad, right?
it
Like,
does. And
so
yeah.
I do think that Asui 1 is still very, very strong and might, again, as we said, might be too strong.
Yeah.
We acknowledge that, but we don't want to recreate the same situation that we did with Kirishima. And so we're kind of taking a measured or gradual approach with this. Hey, let's touch the things that we know are a problem,
Mhm.
see how it evens out. If there's still action to be, if we're wrong, then we'll still touch her. Maybe then we'll ban her.
Well, to your point, sorry to interrupt, but like
Yeah,
to your
no
point
problem.
about that Lashing and Amphibious, those were showing up in more than just Asui. They were showing up in
As a
lots
Chaco
of decks with those
1, yeah,
symbols, and those cards are just
everybody.
money. Like, I'm sure you guys have the data. If you pull the deck list for those symbols, most of the decks that are running those cards are running them at 4x's, and most of the decks that are running those symbols are running those cards as well. So to your point, it's not like the entire top 16 of any event has been all Asui or anything like that, right? Like Kirishima won in set one in those first events was literally at times there was at least
I
one
mean,
off of every symbol in one of them in the top 8
the
or
first
something.
provisional top 4, they had
Yeah.
it was 4 Kirishimas and 1 of each symbol, and I think like 2 goods or 2 voids or something.
Yeah, so like I do think there, to your point, there is a difference here in the amount of power of these characters as well. Both are very good. I don't think anyone would deny that. Both have been very competitive the entire time they've been in the meta. It's just the meta has grown and adapted, and I think that's what's about to happen as well. Like, people can cry for her to be banned, and maybe, like you said, maybe it ends up being the case. But in the meantime, I feel like you guys hit her pretty hard. Like
Yeah.
she's gonna be hamstrung.
And let's talk real quick about some of the community suggested fixes to her.
Sure.
Because I think that leads into kind of like understanding our rationale and our So some people are saying make her twice per turn. Right?
That's I mean that's a thought that I had as well. Like maybe you try this, see how it works or something. Maybe test it and see how it goes.
But then when you go through the big turns that she has,
Mm-hmm.
and we do the math, a lot of these are starting off with a Crone Frog, right? So you
Mhm.
have, if you limit it to twice per turn, at the point at which she's starting to feel any amount of change is attack 5 or 6,
Okay.
right? So let's say Crone Frog. Let's say we only have one Crone Frog. Crone Frog, attack. So we on the third attack we clear the first. On the fourth attack we clear the second. Now on the fifth attack is the first time where we have +1 progressive, right?
Mhm.
So at that point, where you're already so deep into a turn, it's not moving the needle much, especially if it's only a 6 or 7 attack turn. So get +2 progressive. The needle's not actually, and you're probably, if you are failing any of those checks, Frog Lashing or Amphibious is readying it up.
That's what I was
So
about to say. I was like, and then
Yeah.
these cards just raid themselves anyway. So what's the point?
the critical mass of low difficulty plus the re-readies from those 2 cards are making the twice per turn ineffective, realistically.
Mhm.
I mean, what it does is it says instead of 9 attacks in turn, you're playing 8. Okay, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Sure,
That's
that's
still gonna kill
understandable.
most people, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Now, some other people are saying make everything once per turn. Well, if you do once per turn, if somebody gets the character, doesn't have access to the promos or whatnot, that character's kind of dead. Like
Mhm.
Right.
it might be over nerfing. It's very odd, right? You don't make her playing the defense is a cool extra bonus. I do think it's very good. I don't think that's what makes that character unpopular to a lot
No,
of
no.
people, I
It's the
guess.
solitaire offense is I think the thing that
It
people don't like.
Yeah,
it's
it's
the
the
offense, right?
essentially it's the safety net that Amphibious and Frog Lashing created because obviously skilled players are going to play those cards in the best order and to the best ability, but those cards just raise the floor for everyone where it is kind of mindless. You are just playing solitaire because, like you said, oh, I checked a 3 because I played this out of order. Well, it doesn't matter. I've got Amphibious. I'll just tap them and ready them. Or this card was Frog Lashing. I just ready things. It doesn't really matter anyway.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter
Right.
how well my opponent prepared for their defense, knowing this was coming.
Yeah. I mean, I can speak to that, to your point, John. Like, I played that exact deck at Gen Con,
Mhm.
and I played it in one of the provisionals, and I went 5-1 at one, and my one loss was, to a Nomu that turn 2'd me, right? Just he went first and he popped
Ban
off,
Nomu.
right?
He killed you on turn 2.
Yeah, he's broke. And then I played it in the RLE, and the only losses that I had until the very end of it were the mirror matchup where they went first.
And one of
Which
them being the eventual champion.
Yeah, exactly. And the other one was a win and in, just
Mhm.
like I was in the final
Daniel
round. And then
Nelson, who is a very good player, a top tier player. Yeah.
yeah, and then I lost, to Kirishima too, playing against David. But that's neither here nor there. Point being, that deck, I like it. Just you don't. It's too consistent. Like that's what I've been trying to preach, and I think
Mhm.
you guys really honed in on what made it too consistent. Like it's going to have a much harder time killing now because they're not going to have a attack that has no damage cap on it. That's just going to come across for 9+ damage, and it's
Mhm.
not going to be able to sit here and play offense and defense with only a handful of foundations because Amphibious is gone and it can't ready up. I mean, like there were many a time where I'd block, commit up my Amphibiouses, pitch the block. It's a frog kick. You ready up something that can't be ready. Then you ready your Amphibious and your whole board's ready because then you flip the one thing that wasn't to ready your character. And you're like, cool, I have 5 more things back up.
Mhm.
You're going to hit me now? Nah, you're not going to hit me.
Yep.
Yeah.
I will also say this is not associated with Tim. This is all me for all the haters out there. I will say because a lot of people I think that feel like you shouldn't be able to kill people on turn 2 or like you shouldn't be able to do those types of things. And I will say like I think it is also necessary to have a character like Asui who puts that threat on the Grey Wall decks, right? Like that's without Asui, you're gonna have like the Momo life deck that just blocks everything, and you're never gonna have any fun because Momo's just gonna say, "I deny you doing everything." Asui puts the fear in that player that like I have to be ready that Asui, if she doesn't kill me on turn 2, she's just gonna grind me down so far and keep me on my back foot. I can't ever actually recover. And those characters are important in the game too.
Actually, you just hit another factor in, and I don't know if we spoke on this, but we thought that kind of doing those limitations, like the suggested of twice per turn, really what that does is that is ineffective against the early game, but it would have really hindered the late game being able to break through that wall, right? Walls should exist. Being able to play defensive, really tight defensive games, I love. That's some of my favorite version of this game.
I mean, look at Keenan's Kamui Woods deck from the weekend. Like that was super tight defense.
But no one method should be so overwhelming at all points of the game. So allowing a deck like Asui to be able to scale into that late game and say, hey, I didn't come at you turn 2. I could have, but I didn't come at you turn 2. I have a whole bunch of things unflipped, and I have a lot of draw power and a lot of attacks. Okay. I don't have to just give up and worry that I cannot get through your defense. I can try to crack even if you have 5 or 6 attacks in hand or cards in hand, because we've all been there, right? You've all been at a point in the game. It's turn 9 or 10. Someone has built well into deadlock, or even if they haven't, they've got their tools to survive. Anything you can throw at them. But that ability to switch gears and go in late game, I think, is important.
Absolutely.
Definitely. Well, there was another card that was banned. Switching gears a little bit here to Unwavering Slash, and I think this one caught a lot of people off guard, except maybe Tim Keefe, because I watched his video this morning and he specifically mentioned Unwavering Slash, and I don't know if he might be a mind reader or some kind of warlock, but I'm watching you, Tim Keefe. I'm watching you.
No, literally, he's watching you.
So I'm watching you. You're playing Final Fantasy 14, I think, probably on my Discord here. But yeah, Unwavering Slash. What? Explain, if you will, please.
Well,
enlighten.
So I think that plenty of people actually did have their eye on Unwavering Slash.
I have my thoughts, but
especially, I think that it's been pretty popular on air with Stadium, Sports Festival Stadium.
The Stadium. A lot of people slamming that into play.
I was expecting more terrains to be out by now. I'll be honest. That said, yeah, because right now
you mentioned that because terrains, they still function.
It is a keyword, right?
Yeah, you can only one for both players can be in play at any given time.
So the idea with terrains, for anyone who's not familiar, is that they're actually locations where your characters are. They're represented as assets with that keyword, and only one terrain, so one asset with that keyword, can be in play at a time. So if I have Stadium in play and you play something like the bathroom, and maybe that's a terrain, then it blows up my Stadium, and now we're in the bathroom fighting instead.
Maybe UA High.
Okay. I mean, that's
never
where we were
in this My Hero game.
I can't promise. I just think that that's a possibility.
Okay.
Possibly the beach where he trains. I'm not saying that that's coming out, but that is that's a viable idea.
Seems crazy.
Seems like Tim just said Universe's Academy is going to be an asset in the game, guys. That's what I just heard. I don't know, but
well, we did win a teams event. I say we. I wasn't there, but
yeah. So the value that you got off of it, previously, don't get me wrong, set 1 assets are very good. Quick creation,
earphone jack,
earphone jack.
Well, you can't play cape with Unwavering Slash, but
right. Well, no, you can't.
Yeah, it doesn't. It has life, but that's Momo.
So it's very good to get you that tool that you need. But that's the other thing is it's very good at circumventing having to play cards. Now, bringing cards in is not 100% off the table, but doing it for effectively free is kind of nuts.
Yeah, because I mean, it has like a discard cost, but if you wanted to, you could even just discard the asset, right, and then play it. And we were kind of talking about this amongst ourselves, trying to figure it out, like because like assets are like a really kind of hard card type to figure out, right? Because like I don't want to put too many of them in because I can't tap them for foundations. I can't really play them like actions or attacks, but they have really, really powerful effects. And that's kind of like the trade-off, right?
Yeah.
And then being able to ignore actually playing it and building it.
Yeah. Some people absolutely hate green cards, as they'll say.
Mm-hmm.
I love all the different card types. But yeah, being able to effectively just put one into play rather than having had to play it and wait until the next turn to really get use out of it. But I've already kind of in my teaser, I kind of already let everyone know that there's 3 more terrains coming out, and there's maybe some other assets.
Ooh.
But we have even past that, we have some really fun stuff coming out, and I think that like letting Unwavering interact with those cards is just going to be a bit much.
Okay. Because I'm not gonna lie to you, Tim. This one caught me completely off guard, and John and Ryan and I have talked about this some throughout the day, and I think I am the maybe vocal, I don't know, maybe not vocal minority that this is the one that I didn't get. Like I feel like the card, you discard one to build it in. You're pitching a card to build something in. Okay, I don't think that's broken. But then like it does cheat. To your point, cheats making checks. I feel like the card is a 5-diff utility card, pretty much, right? Like that's what it actually does, because it's making your deck more consistent by getting you those assets that you're probably building around, right? Your headphone jacks, your stadiums, or your quick creations. Currently, clearly, far more than I do as far as what's coming down the pipe, so I have better vision there. So I defer to that extent, but for what it is currently, like it's a 4/4 or 5-diff attack, and yeah, it has powerful, and sure, it can ready a card and draw you a card. So it's all utility stuff there, right? Like that, like it is, but at the same time, like I don't know, I cut it from decks all the time, I guess is what I'm saying, and like
until it gets played on an 8 and it's a 9/9.
sure
You
with
play in
Jiro,
Jiro,
sure, but that's whatever.
But no, you actually that's the other thing is that it's double utility. It's not just building you something in, it's also drawing a card. It's also readying a foundation. So
But
it
it
just
can only do
does.
those things conditionally, right? Like it has to have that asset.
But that's the whole
But it
point,
gets you
though,
the
is you're
asset.
discarding,
I
is you're getting the
know.
asset. I guess also, I guess one thing for me is like, is it denies your opponent really an ability to interact with you playing the asset, right? Like it's like, oh, they played it on their turn. Now I know, like I've got this wire arrow that I need to hold so I can flip it and get it out of here, like on my turn, and I get a chance to stop it before it comes at me. And like if there are really powerful assets coming out, then like I totally understand that.
Yeah, it was a package. So I think someone else on the team has a saying. I hope I don't butcher it. It's solving its own. It's providing the answer to its own problem, right? The especially it's hey, you need an asset to draw a card and ready a foundation. Well, so it presents a problem. Say, hey, have this thing and you'll get a bonus. But on the other half of it, it lets you have that
Have the
thing.
thing, yeah, and
So
even further, it converts any one card into that thing, right?
yeah.
Yep.
That's fair. I hadn't really looked at it that way. To your point, like it doesn't actually have a gate behind it because it opens the gate effectively.
Yeah.
But to John's
One or the
point,
other.
just to
Or
play
if the
devil's
cost
advocate,
was a little bit different, I think.
yeah, learning the standards is a very real card, and learning the standards still deals with this issue.
Sure.
So to your
It
point about like
does.
you don't have to hold on to a wire arrow. Like you could your rival can also sit down across from learning the standards and be like, I can't deal with that. So if I use this just flips face down, and I'm sad now.
I love that. I love that teacher Matt is always on. He's always on
I mean,
duty.
that's
I
one
can't turn it
card
off.
on 3 symbols. I mean, like I get it.
But,
Also,
but
I will
it's one
say,
card on 3 symbols, John. Like, so it's unwavering.
yes, but it can pull back infinity symbol cards too, which we've already seen assets with infinity symbol. I will also say I love assets. My favorite deck
Print more
ever
asset answers.
was Death Adon, and I loved me some Legendary Blade. Oh my god, card was great.
See, I am in the other camp. So it's the irony here is that I actually am one of those people. I don't really love assets. Like I'll run them in a deck if I have to. The other further irony there is that my card was an asset, so I ran it. But I definitely love having like asset answers because decks that normally run assets really rely on them. Like they really want that asset to put them over the top to really accelerate their game plan because, to your point, they are strong effects. So I like to have options within my deck to deny my rival that thing they really want if I can do that. So things like learning the standards attract me more than a card like Unwavering Slash, if that makes sense. Like I'd rather have the card that
I
says,
gotcha.
no, you can't do that thing, rather the card that says, give me that thing right now.
Mm.
So that's just me as a player. That doesn't
Mm.
make it right or wrong, you know?
Yeah.
But I was just curious because I was like, it does say when it builds, right? And it still
Mhm.
builds in. So
See, I love assets too, and I think going back to the day, I think for me the perfect asset was Kien.
yeah,
The
the
uh,
Bishamon one.
yeah, the one from
Yeah.
Warriors of the Night.
Million.
It's Kien for you, John. It's
Alright.
it was a 2/6 +2 high block breaker 1 weapon that
Mhm.
respond after you play a weapon, it gets stun 1, playable while committed. It was playable while committed because Bishamon could commit assets to pass checks.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well, he could pass 1. He's not stupid Ash.
Okay.
Right.
If Ryan were here, he would tell us that we're all bad, and the Yoshimitsu asset is the best asset ever. The original, like the 5/2 or whatever that
Yeah.
you commit to make your opponent discard X cards or
Yeah.
something, or commit
Oh,
foundations.
that sounds awful.
You had hit it on a
Yeah.
reversal.
Yeah.
It's what was it? I can
It's
tell
just
you
called
exactly.
Yoshimitsu because it's also the name of his sword.
Um,
But I think essentially you could do it on your opponent's turn, where you could discard X cards, and they would have to discard X cards, or they would have to commit
right.
X foundations.
Yeah,
And they're
you
like,
do it
okay,
on
now it's my turn, and you have no hand or foundations. Sounds fun, right?
winning.
Viewers, don't worry, we're done with the boomer talk.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we're done. We're done. I'm sorry.
Uh,
Back to the present.
okay, yeah, we're done. We're done. We're done. I guess. Also, you may have touched on this a little bit, but as far as like banning Unwavering Slash, like kind of how like having that card exist, also kind of like any kind of set in the future, you have to think about like with these symbols, right? Like, is this going to be an issue? Do we have to undertune this card because Unwavering Slash exists? And it's like, should we fix an infinite number of potential cards that exist, or should we just get rid of this one? Is
Yeah.
that kind of like the equation? Like, is that like how does that factor into it?
Yeah, it's so we always just try to make a card the best version of, and by best I mean like actually not like the spikest, but like just the best version of the card that it can be.
Yeah.
And that means sometimes we have to do high difficulty or a high check value. And so it was, oh man, we really want to make this card, but Unwavering is going to be really, really insane with it. Maybe let's wait and see. Let's do this. So part of determining those things that about those cards, we just felt it was necessary to undo. Potentially, maybe an ability like what Unwavering can do with assets is okay.
Hmm.
Um, but the low cost and low input to that was not acceptable. So it would have to be better balanced, better thought out.
Do you
Gotcha.
think something, and it's just me being curious, while I got your ear, do you think something like if Unwavering built it in committed, do you still think Unwavering would need to go then? Or do you think something like that might be enough for that kind of effect to not be out of control?
We'd have to look at it and whatnot. I know we've kind of done some thought experiments, but I don't want to give people too many hopes. But yeah,
Fair, fair.
I don't want to like say, oh, Tim talked about this on there, so this might be a thing that can come back. But I mean, like maybe committed, maybe um a number of momentum would be at a proper cost. Something just so that it's not like easy mode turn 2. I
Slows it
dis
down.
I
Right.
discard up to a 10
Yeah.
difficulty asset if we ever make one of those. We
Whew,
haven't. Don't
whew.
that we have not. Don't worry about that. But like, oh, I'll get rid of this 10
Hmm.
difficulty card and just build it right in. And because
Yeah.
it's 10 diff, it has to be insane, right? So
Yeah.
Right.
um so the fact that it was easy on turn 2, can bring in anything, regardless of cost, you get it immediately. Just the discard cost wasn't appropriate, and so who knows? Maybe we'll do something in a similar shape, but it will not look exactly like what Unwavering Slash is.
Fair enough.
Very cool. Very cool.
Well, there you have it,
Well,
guys. That is the insight to the bands, right?
yes, there you go. Um, if you guys want to stick around, we're going to take a short little break and we're going to come back. And like we said, we're going to talk about a few previews with Tim. So stick around, guys. We'll be right back. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Universe Academy podcast. Still here chatting with Tim, lead designer from Jasco Games. We are going to have a little bit of a change of pace here from talking about the banned cards. We're going to talk about upcoming cards, some previews.
Super not banned cards.
Super not banned cards yet. And we're going to talk about 3 characters. We each decided to pick one from the new previews. And I believe Matt is going to talk to us first about Stain.
Yeah, so Stain 2 is coming out in set 3, and this character looks awesome. He is 720. He is evil, order, and void, so a little bit of a shake up for his symbols. And then he has 2 abilities. The first one is form once per turn. Your next weapon attack gets +3 speed. After it resolves, remove it from the game and draw a card. And then he has a response that's also once per turn. After your weapon attack deals damage, commit and freeze 1 rival foundation. This dude seems awesome. Before I geek out on this, it does have the reminder text on it. So freeze is a keyword ability. And what it does, is it just a keyword?
It's not even a keyword. It is just a phrased. It's a term.
It's like build.
It's just
Yeah,
like an effect.
Okay, yeah. So it's a term that's shorthand for other text.
correct.
Okay, sorry. Thank you. So freeze is a frozen card does not ready during its owner's next ready step. So like they can do things during their combat phase to ready it, but naturally during the ready, it doesn't ready. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what this guy's going to be doing then is like I'm just excited for the potential of like combo stuff with this guy because the weapon package has a whole bunch of random combos. As we've seen, whether it's off of Void with all the new Eraserhead stuff and the old Eraserhead stuff, or whether it's off Evil with his set 2 cards for Stain. There's lots of cool combos there. So like this guy's gonna be able to play those cards. Like he can form before it, play one, comes in with +3 speed, so it's more difficult for your rival to block and more intimidating. And then whether they block it or not, it's going to remove from the game. You're going to draw a card, and then you can play something off that combo again. Like that just seems super cool to me. And then even further, he's also going to just deal with 1 card of his choice anytime that they take damage from his stuff. And Tim, correct me if I'm wrong, but this says after your attack deals damage. Would that trigger off of any of his other just you take a damage kind of effects? Like something like a jolt, for example. Could he jolt someone and then freeze it?
If
It's
jolt
not
were a
weapon.
weapon, yes.
Okay, yeah. All right, I was just
Yeah.
clarifying. Yeah, as far
If
as the text.
Anything that's damaged, absolutely. If it's if it's completely blocked, they lose. They lose a health.
Mhm.
Then no, that would not do it. But if
Right.
it still deals 1 damage, yes.
Yeah. All right. Sweet. So, can you kind of speak to the design? Because this is pretty different from the previous version. Like, it's still similar in that way. He adds some speed to his weapon stuff, and he's still thematically on weapons. But like past that, he's almost completely different, right? He's not hacking CC checks, and he's not making them bleed necessarily.
Yeah.
So, can you kind of, I guess, explain the reapproach here to Stain?
So again, we went into set 3 design saying, we like Stain. We want to do a little bit different of a take on him. Some people originally had thought he should be a 7-hander with the abilities that we ended up doing on the first one. We did not want to give him 7-hand size. But this was hey, let's make instead of a control-y Stain, which again, we thought, hey, first time tackling Stain, hey, this guy is a control deck, right? Because he he sets you in place, you can't move your body. That sounds like control.
Mhm.
Um, and so for us, that was really important to go with control for the first one. For the second one, we're like, well, yeah, but he's just also a badass, like ninja samurai street fighter, like not the game character. And
Yeah.
we just what about a really cool aggro Stain? So, you know, like we like taking inspiration from the past.
Mhm.
And so, oh my gosh, sorry. Taking inspiration from the past. So, kind of thought to start, who's another awesome sword wielding character. Kind of got some inspiration, as you can see. Looks very similar to an old ninja in the game.
Mhm.
But it really felt like it made sense for him, where it's a really strong aggression. And what we did was we slightly changed it, since this character doesn't have the air symbol with evil, rather than discard the card. It removes from the card pool. So he's paying a cost. He doesn't get to do this infinitely, even if he cycles.
Mhm.
Every time he does his form, even if the game potentially goes long, he's losing an attack every single time he does that.
Right.
Um,
To me, that's
so
kinda cool because to me, like, it seems like this stain's almost capturing that after he's been defeated, but he's just, like, still not willing to go down, and he's, like, just that savage kinda brute version of himself there at the end where his heart eventually gives out and he, like, falls over. He's not dead, by the way. They have confirmed he did not die in that scene,
Spoiler.
but it's not a spoiler. They take him away. Like, he's still alive when they take him away, and I think they even throw away a line saying that his
I
heart
think they
just
do.
gets
Yeah.
out. But I thought he died the first time I watched it. But point being, that's what this feels like. Was that kinda what the objective was, to try to capture that version of him?
yeah, it's that more savage aspect to him, and
Yeah.
then but maintaining a little bit of that tactician, where hey, I hit you. That's him using his quirk. That's the blood
Mhm.
curdle. It's I drew blood. Now part of you at least is frozen in place.
Mhm.
That's awesome. I'm really excited for this character. I love seven hand size aggro decks anyway, so, this is right up my alley.
Nice.
So, I'm
Yeah.
definitely gonna be exploring this character.
Nice. Um, uh, I am really excited by the principal of UA Academy, Nezu. So Nezu was previewed recently. Nezu is a 626. He's all Chaos Order. Response: after your rival draws one or more cards during the combat phase due to a non-character effect, draw one card. Enhance once per turn. Discard one card. Add one card from your discard pile to your hand with difficulty matching the discarded card. And we have enhance once per game. Look at your rival's hand. Um, I love the idea of this character. I think it's really cool, especially like we were just talking about it last night in our Discord. I keep looking at chaos decks and I'm like, man, but card draw is such a crutch for me. I want to have all my decks have card draw. And chaos kind of it has more like card recursion than like just straight
Mhm.
card draw per se. But I love this because it's a lot of people do complain like, oh, well, my opponent just keeps drawing cards, and it's like, well, now here, if that bugs you, here's Nezu, and you can say like, oh, you want to keep drawing cards? I get to draw a bunch of cards now too. And just like the adaptability, the malleability of the discard one card to pull back something. It's like, oh, he has blood curdle symbols. Blood curdle sure is a 4 difficulty card. I can pitch this blood curdle, pull back an attack because I don't need blood curdle because I don't care about your character or whatever.
And
Like
that's
just
just once per turn.
that's once per
Your turn
turn.
and theirs. That's crazy
Mhm.
good.
Yeah. Or oh, you played this high block or this high attack. Well, this is a low block. I'm gonna pitch it out, get a high block. All right, we're good.
Mhm.
Like I love that type of design. And then obviously the once per game to like also go ahead and open it up. Let me see what you got. Let me see what you're working with over here. So I can then discard this card I don't need because you can definitely block it and pull back an
Mhm.
attack you can't block.
Right. So, John, I just gotta ask, do you
Mhm.
know Principal Nezu's actual quirk in the show?
I
Like, are you
don't.
familiar with what it is?
We're almost toward the end of season 5, and they may have said it at some point. I
They do.
don't remember.
It's like
Um,
in season 2, around, like, the back half of
I-
season 2 or so.
it's like when he like because he comes out in like the giant thing and he's like wrecking stuff or whatever. I think
Mhm.
the President Mike does his little rundown, but I can't remember what it
Yeah.
is.
Tim, tell us what it is, because there's a really cool the reason he has that final ability, I feel like, is exclusively because of his quirk.
So Mr. Principal, or Nezu, is his quirk is high specs. Uh and that just means he is actually just a rat
Mhm.
that is really smart, and really, like, he's just, if he were an RPG character, like if you're D&D, all of his stats would be 20.
Okay.
Like, yeah, he's, like, the most intelligent, I wanna say, like, being effectively, right? Like, his IQ is, like, off the charts.
Again,
I
he is an actual rat that
Yes.
just has high stats.
Yeah.
I wondered about that because obviously they do have like the anthropomorphic quirks.
Mhm.
Obviously, you have the lizard spinner. I think
Spinner.
like
Mhm.
that. I think that's his quirk is just like being the reptile guy. Or they have a lot of ones like
Yeah.
that.
He is a
But with,
gecko.
yeah, a
Yeah.
gecko. Okay, thank you.
Well, he's a person, but his quirk
Yes.
is gecko.
As being
Yeah.
a gecko, yeah.
but like they have the associated abilities with that animal. But with Nezu, it didn't really seem like that was like his thing. He seemed different than them, so that is very cool that he's Master Splinter, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
He's just super smart. So that's
Very
why he
cool.
can look at their hand and know exactly what they're doing, because that's the point of that scene, right? Because he's
Mhm.
basically one step ahead of them. He figured out exactly what they were trying to do. He's like, oh, then I do this, boop.
Mm.
Oh, then I do this, boop.
He's Master Splinter from the 1990s movie, not from the
Yes.
cartoon.
Yes.
Fair.
Hmm.
But yeah, this guy's great. I love Nezu.
Yeah.
He's hilarious in the show. I love that demented aspect to him. But he's also really cool as the principal.
I was just gonna say, I need a card of him, like the one where he's like drinking the tea and like laughing like maniacally. Like I need that as a card at some point. That's very funny.
Gosh, that would be amazing.
I hope to do something similar to that sometime. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so you want to know about this guy, right?
Yeah. Like, what was the thought process? Like, how did you land on like kind of these abilities? Because I get the sense, especially the response, like that feels like something that is really unfair, like on its face. But I feel like in practice, it's probably a lot more balanced than people think it's going to be.
Yeah. So again, when we look at a character, we try to dissect like who they are. So what are like the most important aspects to who Nezu is? Well, he's the principal, right? Which means he's in charge of all the students. He has to see to their well-beings, but he should be able to be a step ahead of them.
Hmm.
He is an educator. Um, on top of that, he has these high specs, and he always has a master plan. Like you see in the was it the final exam arc um, against Mina and Kaminari, his whole thing is he's able to kind of like guess the route they're going to go, and he destroys the buildings to force them to go a certain way. He has a master plan. He's going to make you do kind of what he wants, and that is kind of like the feel that all three of these abilities get you to the once per game. That's hey, again, I can see through what you're gonna do. I'm gonna be able to adjust to that. Um, the turning one card into another. That's how he's able to adjust. He's like, oh, I looked, I boop, oh wait, you are this, this is your game plan. Oh well, let's get rid of this and bring up a different tool, a better tool.
Hmm.
Um, and then just like, yeah, oh, you think you're special because you are able to draw a card? No, me too. Why not? I
I can
can
do
keep
that
up
too.
with it.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think some people are gonna probably overevaluate the response. It is very cool and very
Hmm.
strong.
Yeah.
And it's very fun. Like that's the thing is in testing, this guy was just a ton of fun. Um, there are some ways to force your rival to draw a card, but it's just like, well, oh, you need another tech? Maybe I'll get another block.
Right.
Definitely. Yeah, because you can like there's like was it in the new indiscriminate shock? It forces them to discard and draw a card, or reciprocal acceleration
That's
kick
true.
forces them to draw a card, which then you can then respond to draw a card as well.
Yep. And then if you look at the symbols, the reason that choosing that,
Hmm.
all a lot of people will say all is the draw symbol. A lot of symbols are the draw symbol, but it definitely is kind of like he's basic. He's just really high stats.
Hmm.
So that was kind of like the inspiration for the all. Um, and then chaos, he's like maniacal, right? But also then he's orderly. He runs the institution that has trained Japan's heroes for years.
Hmm.
So that's where the order comes in.
Very cool.
The irony there is saying that he's high stats. I think the only thing I don't like about this character is his stats. 626 is really painfully
It's
average.
pretty rough.
But that being said, given
There's
his
a reason though.
abilities, I understand why he's a
Yeah.
626. You know what I'm saying? Like if he were like a 628, this guy could be getting a little buck wild.
Hmm.
Might not be fun, might be a little too good then. So
Yeah.
yeah.
But yes, that's Nezu. And lastly, Tim, I believe there's one you want to talk to us about. This one we talked about previously, but this is a card you were really excited for in the new set. This character.
I'm very happy to that we're able to experiment a little bit in this set.
Hmm.
So Mezzo Shoji, very cool character. Counters. I really wanted to experiment something like counters, and I'll tell you, this is me being a blatant plagiarizer, I came up with the initial idea for this character from a HeroClix figure that
Oh.
I actually went to an event with and played wrong for 3 of the 5 rounds I played because I did not read the card. Uh, but that was a Doctor Octopus HeroClix figure, and it
Ah,
inspired me.
Mm.
I think that you know, we're breaking new ground with the game right now, and part of that is expanding kind of our comfort zone. So I really, really wanted to experiment with something like a character that dealt with counters. I play lots of different games. I play Runeterra. I play Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering is the reason I play card games. I started at 9 years old with beta. So um,
if only you
I
still had those cards. If only.
oh,
Oof,
I I
man.
I've never played Yu-Gi-Oh, but I've played a lot of Pokemon, all those different things, and a lot of games deal with counters.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
A lot of them have a way to track things that are not just dice. Um, so I really wanted to try out a character that was based around a counter system, and I know that there were some funky things back in the old day of UFS
Mhm.
um, that some of them didn't even work correctly or whatnot, or if they did, they were super difficult to navigate. I wanted something that was more approachable and friendly. So when you look at his ability to just start with 4 every turn, uh, that was kind of like the other um, concession is okay. Realistically, what this is saying is I have a variety of different enhances. Some of them might only be once per turn. Some of them I could maybe do 4 times per turn. The idea is that it's a toolbox of options
Mm-hmm.
that uh I have a limited pool of points to use for. And so obviously counters is the best way to do that in a card game. And I just thought, because that's like his character in the show, right? He can do a billion different things. He can. What do you need right now? Oh, he can make an eyeball to see farther. He needs wings. He can make himself wings and fly or glide. But like
Mhm.
he has so many different options, but he can't do all of them all the time. So that was kind of like really like the inspiration for that character.
Okay. When I first saw him, you talking about magic. He reminded me of like a mix of like Umazawa's Jit and a Planeswalker kind of
Sure.
because I think Jit didn't like keep refreshing tokens, but it came in like it had like 2 or 3 different like really strong, unique like abilities, but you only got X amount of like resources to use them, and it's about like picking when to use those kind of things. So I really like this character. I think he's really neat.
Yeah, I
Um,
think he'll add a nice ripple to the people's, like you're saying, like having those choices, right? Like granted you have to just find an attack, but as long as you're finding an attack, then you have all these cool options. Like honestly, I think the -1 is probably the coolest one. Like peeking just to know your next check so you can plan out your turn. Like that
mhm.
seems really cool. But like let's say you don't see that attack. All right, cool. Well, I have this -4 that just says that now whenever I block your thing, I don't take damage. Like he has amphibious on his face.
Oh, wall
Yeah.
cleaning.
Or wall
We
clean,
ha-
sorry.
Yep.
we
Phidiophobia is where I was going, sorry.
we
Eek.
we went through a bunch of different versions of the character. At like one point, he also had plus or minus damage. At one
Mm.
point, I think the speed was 1 counter, and the look at the top was 2.
Mhm.
Uh, and then when coming through with it, uh, I don't think we initially had a 3 cost one, but we thought it was you know trying to find those like meaningless things to have some sort of sense of meaning on them. So we ended up with the 1, 2, 3, 4, and the costs on that are I think reflected appropriately too. So we ended
Mhm.
up with a nice end result, and I really hope people dig into this character because I think there's a lot of cool things you can do with him. It will take some time. He's not going to
Mhm.
have immediate success,
Yeah.
but if you give Shoji enough time, I really think he'll prove to be able to like. I think this character can do stuff. So
he seems kind of toolboxy, kind of like Momo is, in a totally different way, but like same sort of like gameplay style, right? Where you're like, hey, I have all these options. I have to make the best choice each turn and that sort of thing, which he shares life with her. So, that's kind of cool. But yeah, sorry, John, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Oh, no, it's fine. I was actually going to reference Momo as well. Like, he strikes me as kind of like a set one Momo, where it's like, this character is really cool and strong enough right now, but I think is only going to get, like, as the card pool expands, then you're really going to see them shine, because then you're really going to be able to have, like, oh, like, this card really suits this, like, the 2 counter one, or like the 3 counter one. Like, that's, I think he's just going to get a lot better as more cards come. I mean, there's a lot of characters like that, but especially him, I think
maybe there'll be a proliferate mechanic at some point. Then he's gonna get buck wild.
Ooh, wait now.
Or other cards that just interact with generic counters, and then
I am also excited to see the things people are going to 3D print to use 4 counters for Shoji. That's going to be exciting too, because someone's going to like show up with the arms, right? It's just going to be the arms, right? Or the counters, or something weird like that, and it's going to be amazing.
Awesome, man. Well, Tim, thank you so much for joining us for this episode and taking some time out of your busy day.
No problem. My pleasure. I love hanging out with you guys. So.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, and like I know, if nothing else, if no one else values what you did, I appreciate the insight that you provided, and the detailed and the explanation for the bands. Hopefully others will as well. Guys, if you're listening and you've made it to this point in the episode, make sure that you like and subscribe and do all the YouTube and social media things. Leave us comments below. Tell us all the things we should have asked him that we forgot to, all those sorts of things. And maybe we'll be lucky one day, and the UFS or the My Hero gods will smile upon us again, and we'll get him back on here, and maybe we can ask him those questions then.
Very true. Very true.
Wait, yeah, I'm in.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Tim, like Matt said, we appreciate you coming on and sharing your insight to the community. And like we said, guys, Asui is untouched right now, the character itself, but they're still keeping an eye on her. They're not letting her go. So she's not out of the woods yet. If you really want to get her banned, you have to come up with the most broken version of the deck now and play it over and over again and win tournaments with it. So that's your new mission, guys.
Right. And I don't care what nobody says, Tim. You good people, you keep doing what you're doing. You guys are doing a great job, and we love playing the game. So thank you very much.
Yep.
Well, thank you very much.
Have a great week, guys. We appreciate you listening.
See you guys.
Bye.